Hi there, I'm Judy Holland, and welcome to HappiNest, the podcast where you can hear the latest research and best advice for living well when your kids leave home. Join me as I interview experts and explore how to reinvent yourself during this critical passage. I hope you'll head over to judyhollandauthor.com and check out my new book, HappiNest, Finding Fulfillment When Your Kids Leave Home. Marjorie Schulte is a Scottsdale, Arizona psychotherapist who has counseled hundreds of couples. Marjorie stresses the importance of both partners in a marriage pursuing their own separate interests, in addition to spending time together. If you are pursuing your own interests and feeling happy and fulfilled, it presents your partner with a far more interesting spouse. But many modern-day marriages have been kid-centric, with couples leading their lives wedded not to each other, but to the children, she says. Marriages that revolve around the kids can take a toll on marital bliss. Marjorie's so glad you could join us today on the HappiNest podcast.
Thank you very much, Judy. I'm thrilled to be here.
And I'm so happy to be talking to someone with such expertise in couples and how you make things work and what can go wrong, because, you know, all of us in marriage, but in empty nest marriages in particular, we need to know these things. So I want to absolutely. So I want to start. And Marjorie, how long have you been married?
I have been married. We're coming up on 47 years.
Whoa. Is your husband? Yes. That is a long time. Oh my God.
It's a good run, Judy. Yes.
It is. And you have kids, right?
We do. We have a daughter, a son-in-law, and 2 grandchildren.
Wow. I hear that's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun and it's exciting, and we're very pleased that our kids live near us and we can interact with the family. It's really great.
Absolutely. Okay, so you also can practice what you preach, it sounds like, by keeping the marriages together.
Oh, yes.
So now I wanted to ask you, why does taking time apart after the kids leave enhance an empty nest relationship? Marjorie, we want to be like together all the time?
Well, actually, I think that's one of the misconceptions that people go into relationships with, Judy, that a relationship, a marriage, is a merger. And in fact, that is absolutely detrimental to happiness. A relationship is a partnership. And it's a partnership where both people always need to maintain their individual identity and autonomy in order for things to work. So time apart is an opportunity, not so much to be apart as much as to pursue our individual life, to individuate, to be our own people with our own interests, our own activities, our friends, our dreams. It's very important that our life not stop with each other.
And is there a kind of renewal in that? So, you know, what are your hobbies? Marjorie, when you escape your husband, what are you going to go do? Do you play tennis? Do you throw pots?
I exercise every day. I feel that it's very important to keep on moving, Judy, and especially as we get older, to keep everything greased and oiled and active. So I work out in some way every day, and I'm conscious about what I put into my body most of the time, except that I'm a Bostonian and we're all addicted to ice cream. But so I have friends. I read. I love to read, and I love movies. I go to the movies a lot. We go to theater. We go to symphony. We go to plays. We're big ballet goers. So we do a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
I keep busy myself. I go to movies alone if I'm in the mood. I love going to movies alone. And I see my women friends. And I also run my business, my practice. And so there's a lot going on for me.
Right. And I imagine that's really interesting and stimulating for your husband. If you're out there doing things that are different, you're bringing new ideas, you're bringing new friends, new observations, you're experiencing novelty in different ways. And then that
is kind of a renewal in a marriage that's starting to crowd toward 5 decades, right?
Absolutely. And, even something as simple as reading. I love novels. I read a lot of novels. Obviously, I'm a psychotherapist. I love stories. I've always been attracted to what goes on in people's heads and what makes them tick. So we talk about the different books we read. We talk about the different movies we see. We'll listen to the news and discuss whatever we think is happening, and we discuss podcasts. And another thing that we enjoy particularly, we play games together, Judy, and that I have found is a very fun, social, pleasant, lighthearted way for people to spend time together.
What kind
a
of
couple
games?
Or with friends.
What kind of
we
games?
play board games, we play card games, and it's just fun. And I think in a world where there's a lot of stress and a lot of angst, having fun, enjoying the lighter side of things is another part of health. The stress stuff is what it's a killer.
So you've just launched me on another train of thought on this concept of eudaimonia or hedonia, which I imagine you're familiar with. So are eudaimonic when we're leading a life focused on eudaimonia? We're striving, we're altruistic, we're striving to help others, we're making the best out of ourselves. I mean, it's kind of work, right? But there is also a fun or sort of hedonic part that we need to balance with that. And I find me as an 8th generation Vermonter with Puritan Calvinist roots in me, I come out short on hedonia. I tend to strive and work and do that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think we have to leave time for leisure and joy and just plain fun with our partners, right?
You are absolutely right. And I'm somebody that believes in the blend of options and the balance in the universe. So I think our lives need to express that. I love playing, and my husband calls me a good time girl. I love laughing. I love having fun. And that's one piece, balanced with also my work and my friends and my other activities. I think we need it all. And I think part of our self-care, which is a crucial ingredient for all healthy people, is to have fun, is to do things that we enjoy. That's part of what juices us up and keeps us going.
So self-care, that's a great tangent, or it's not really a tangent, it's quite germane to what we're saying. Self-care in women, let's talk about that. And women and mothers in particular. So when you're a mother, you can sometimes feel like someone's pulling on every finger and every toe in a different direction.
Right.
A new friend of mine produced the Incredibles movie, and the mother, they all had magic powers, and the mother was flexible. She would stretch like a rubber band in every direction until it looked like she would break, right? So let me bring that image back, and tell me, so what about women, mothers, and self-care? Isn't there a deterrent, an issue? I mean, don't women have a harder time indulging in self-care? And how about when the empty nest comes?
Judy, that's absolutely true. Because I think when you look at the psychological programming, the gender programming in the world, not just our country, women are slotted into the caretaker, the giver, the doer, the fixer, the communicator, and the man goes off and works and comes home, and he's supposed to be the boss and the king and be waited on. And so women try, even if they're professional women, it sneaks into our DNA. And so we try to do it all. And it is exhausting. Plus, it's impossible.
Right.
So I think it's that part of that, and this is my personal opinion, as women, especially in relationships, I think one of our major jobs is that of teacher, explainer, information giver, and modeler. We need to show men how to do it, how to be good partners, how to love, how to talk, how to participate, how to be more of a partner and less of a boss. Mm-hmm. We need to do that, Judy, because our culture isn't doing it.
Right. No,
and it's what a great modeling it is for women with sons.
Right.
To show the son early on, hey, honey, here's a great option so that you'll have a happy life in relationship with women.
No,
That's terrific.
absolutely. And again, we don't want to be resentful, because doesn't resentment damage a relationship? So if we're doing it all 24/7, making the cake, going to work, coming back, we might resent the person that isn't doing that. So instead, we ought to model for them how we share more evenly, perhaps, in the labors.
Definitely. Resentment, first of all, it's not sexy. So if you're angry and resentful, you're not feeling very excited or very interested in sex. How can you naturally move toward somebody that you are mad at and not liking at that moment?
Right.
I also think a very important point that we need to all live by, in my opinion, is the idea that we are responsible to create the life experiences that we want, and that we need to step up and take responsibility for the outcomes. Mm-hmm. So we're responsible for our life, and that's a high level of awareness and autonomy. And so if you're mad, if you're resentful, if you're not happy in your relationship, change it. Change you. Do something different. Get out of the blame game. That is absolutely useless.
And the empty
nest. And it's a victim.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah. It's a victim mentality, you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah, the victim mentality is a get nowhere position. It just leaves you impotent.
So the empty nest is a good time, because some of us, I have 3 kids and things, and I had athletes, and oh my gosh, they went in every direction. So, but we do have more time to breathe at this point. So this is a time to maybe mindfully usher in some more of an evenness on how we balance all these and all the responsibilities that are still connected with a Great Dane, a yellow lab puppy, and a household, right?
Right, exactly. Because it's an opportunity not only for you each to continue your lives as you've known it and pursue your own interests and your own dreams, it's also an opportunity to find new and creative ways to be together. Right. Without the focus on the children, to play, to do things that you both enjoy, to laugh and to share, to go back to the time when you ran around and had fun. Right. That's very, very enlivening when we do that with our partners.
And that's a way also at this point to bring, to resurrect or bring back in some form a romantic life, and more of an intimate life is an important part of this. Even, we're aging, our kids are leaving, but that's important. And maybe this can be a kind of renaissance.
I think it can. And again, the sexiest thing is someone that you're enjoying and having fun with. Yes. And again, it doesn't just happen. So good sex is a product of mindfulness. Mm-hmm. So you make time for it, you set the scene, and what's nice, when you have a house that's you and your mate, you can decide any time of day or night to play, to get together and have some fun. And again, it's important to remember that when you're really tired, you don't feel sexy. Right. So for many people, the best, most fun time for sex is either midday, early evening, late morning, whenever they have time. You've got to have your coffee, of course, but whenever they have time to put aside some special opportunity to get together, that's great. And it feels like so much fun to be home in your house at 11 o'clock or something in the morning and just having fun. That's a great thing to do. And it can set you up for the whole day.
Right. So why, though, the empty nest, you and I both know, is a time that is ripe for extramarital affairs. And we know there's a lot of research going on about gray divorce, about the walkaway wife that's so exasperated she continues to be martyred and feels angry. And there's all kinds of issues after the kids go and there are fewer young distractions around. Why is the empty nest? Why are people at risk for divorce or issues when the household shifts into the empty nest?
I think much of it has to do with the whole pattern of the connection all along during the marriage. So if the man is really married to his work and the woman is really married to the children, then once there's a shift and the children are gone, there's a huge void there. That's one very common problem that I see a lot. And again, the other thing is that when you have a distraction in a relationship, it's easier to avoid each other or to not focus on the two of you. When there's less distraction, it becomes clearer. Wait a minute. We've been together 30 years. Do we really have something in common? Do we really talk?
Right.
You know, does each person come home at the end of the day and turn on the news and grab a bite to eat and sit in front of the TV? That's a killer for communication.
Right.
So making time for face-to-face communication is very important. And you have to work at it.
Right.
Because there's a
work.
big shift. Yeah, of course. And, you know, I think people sort of have a fantasy. You get married, you walk off into the sunset, and everything is perfect. But as we know in life, every single thing that's worthwhile is worth focus and energy. That's just how it is.
Right.
And our relationships are in that category. Forever. As long as you're in a relationship, you need to be committed, you need to be aware, you need to invest energy and time. Forever. That's the nature of it.
Invest time
Right.
in the other person and also reevaluate. A lot of women of my generation did bear the brunt of childcare in addition to busy jobs. And perhaps you've got to rewrite that script a little bit now that there's more time, but cast off some of the resentment again, which has given birth to, I think David Arp, I spoke to some others who spend a lot of time with empty nesters, say a lot that, you know, it says the walk-away wife, you know, is a common syndrome that the woman has just carried so many jobs. She's exhausted and she's just at wit's end by the time the kids leave. So what do you recommend? What do you recommend, Marjorie? Novelty,
fun?
I
think it's real. Well, I think the first thing, though, Judy, that we need to all do, and this is something that people kind of balk at, is take responsibility for our role in that. And all women that are, you know, probably at least over 50, have this dual role model in their head because that's what we grew up with and that's what we saw. However, we're responsible for the choices we made. So the first and most important thing to do is for us to own our own resentment and say, wait a minute, these were the choices I made. I chose to overextend. I chose to run myself ragged. Not that there wasn't lots of reasons and influences and all of that everybody can relate to. Still, we need to own it and say, now I have an opportunity to do it differently. So instead of blaming your partner, this is where you begin to say, hey, wait a minute, honey. Things have changed now. So get up from the table and get over here and cut up the salad. Make the salad. I'm going to put on the vegetables or whatever. And you begin then to expect more help, ask for more help. And in that process, the resentment will begin to ebb and you will feel more actualized.
Yeah, I think I understand too that it's, you know, it's not necessarily just a spouse that imposed all that. I mean, many women of my generation, I imagine yours too, you've been a professional, a very busy one with kids. I think many of the women in my generation were run ragged, and society kind of gave the messages that you can be your mother who baked bread and you can cover Capitol Hill and go on television, get up at 6, go jogging, come back and help somebody with calculus homework at 11 p.m. We all...
Absolutely.
We did these things, many of us.
That's right. We did these things. And we thought this was part of our job to do it all. And because women are so competent, and I'm not saying men aren't, but in my experience, women are very competent much of the time and really able to be many places at once. And so because we could, we did.
Right.
And so that's wonderful. It's an accomplishment. Look at what we did. We raised beautiful children. We're still intact. Our brain still works.
Right.
And now it's an opportunity for our evolution and to begin to tell ourselves, even though we can, we're not going to.
Right.
Instead of doing X, Y, and Z around the house, I'm going to go out and take myself to lunch with a friend and go to a play. Good. Great. Good for us.
Right. No, absolutely. And in that, I'm bringing back, you spoke earlier about how we model this behavior. So don't forget, even though your kids may not be sitting at the dining room table, you're still continuing to model behavior about couples, about older people that are supposed to have more wisdom, right? So if we're
definitely.
So how can we better talk to me about the reflection on the kids and how we, if you model this, what you're describing, I think we're going to pass this on to the next generation too, aren't we?
I think so. And I talked to my daughter about this. I talked to her about self-care and about the fact that her whole life isn't just being a good mother, because she's also a professional woman. She has a career. She has 2 kids. She has a husband. She has a house, the whole thing. And we talk about this. And it's also interesting, Judy, because my privilege as a grandmother of a boy and a girl has also allowed me to talk to the children. And I talk to my grandchildren a lot about things like this. Roles and gender and consciousness, awareness, being true to themselves. These are the things we need to talk to our family about and model. So believe me, both our kids and our grandkids are very much aware of and watch very carefully the relationship of grandma and grandpa.
Right.
Mom and dad. Yeah. And so they see what we do. They see how we live. And that, of course, is the loudest voice of all, to see how somebody's doing it that you admire, who you think is successful.
That's kind of monkey see, monkey do, but in a good
right.
way.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
but so,
that's right.
So in the process, you're helping the next generation, your offspring, but also I feel like there are huge, big icebergs in society. There are attitudes and big ideas that, there's still just vestiges of the 50s and that is now women, you do it all. And slowly, with these messages to our kids, and as we model these things, we very slowly push that big societal iceberg and slowly change public attitudes and make things a little happier and a little more even, I think.
I think that's true, Judy. And, another part of that is that in interaction with people, I think there's a tendency, if you're on a different page, if one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, or one is this and one is that people get antagonistic, they get defensive, they go to their corner, and they try to sell each other on their point of view. My thought is, if we're willing to embrace a different attitude, an attitude of cooperation and education and caring, we can open up these discussions with people and talk about, gee, it's interesting what you're saying and I hear you. And also, I have a point of view that I'd like to share as well. Here's my thought on that. And so less fighting, more communication allows for people with differences to find common ground. And that is so crucial, both personally, interpersonally, nationally, and in a world.
Mm-hmm.
That helps a community be more together instead of fighting. Yeah, fighting is ridiculous.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marjorie, as we're getting older, we're supposed to be a little wiser, a little more open-minded, a little more patient. So ideally, this is what we can model for others, and we should be able to create the empty nest and this, as we're getting a little older, a phase of life that is more spiritual, more harmonious, more joyful, and with fewer stresses.
Yeah. Hopefully. And, as we continue to chalk up life experiences, I think it allows us, hopefully, to broaden our view, to see more the nuance and the shades of gray and the many, many opportunities for diversity rather than black and white, good, bad, right, wrong. That's so limiting, that point of view. But I think when you're younger, you're more, sometimes there tends to be more of that. More, I know what the answer is. I know I'm right. And as we get older, we see there are so many choices and there's so many complexities in living that we're probably all right in some ways.
Right.
And all could change and be more flexible in some ways. That's an important awareness.
Right. Age,
Yeah.
and as we move through time, that's humbling, isn't it? I mean, the teenagers...
It really is.
The teenagers kind of shock us into that, and then the kids leave, and we hear a little more. It's not quite as shocking as those teen years, but as we move into this phase, with a little more time to reflect, we can come to that point. But let me bring you to there are some, but there still are many couples who uncouple and untie the knot in gray divorce at the empty nest time. But I know from speaking with you when interviewing you last year for HappiNest for my book, that even the gray divorce or the uncoupling for years, you can reap rewards from that, and that are kind of spiritual rewards. How does one, if one ends up in an empty nest divorce, what's the positive spin out of that? What's the self-growth that can come out of that?
Well, I think part of it is that, just to state this, and probably it's obvious to everybody, but I think it's just good to remind ourselves that getting divorced is not necessarily a negative. It doesn't mean that's a bad thing, and it doesn't mean that you have failed. Sometimes when people feel that they've done their quote-unquote job, they've raised and launched their children, then they allow themselves to honestly assess their relationship and to ask themselves, gee, do we really want to spend the next 20 years together? Mm-hmm. Are we really a couple? Do we really still have anything in common? And those are important questions, because sometimes the most self-loving thing we can do is to leave a situation that isn't really working for us and move on to our truth. Mm-hmm. So it can be a very wonderful, exciting experience of new opportunities, new growth, new awarenesses. If that's how it works out, that's great. If it's that one person wants out and the other doesn't, of course there's going to be pain in that. There's pain in living. There's no escaping that. But again, I think every experience is an opportunity as well as a challenge and a potential upset or disaster. So I think we need to really dig deep and to embrace the possibilities that the experience brings. And that's a choice.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's a choice for us to make.
We don't grow, we don't learn without pain. Unfortunately, that's the human condition. Right?
That's right.
No way around that. I've tried to find ways around that. I've been really diligent about that, but to this point, I haven't found a way. I haven't found a way to grow without falling and skinning my knee. So to wrap this up, I'd love to just ask you So Marjorie, what advice for empty nest couples or families? You do family counseling. Do you give? What are your top off the cuff advice that last kid goes away, a lot is changing. People are kind of jolted by it to varying degrees. What's right off the top of your head? You seem to have done this well professionally and succeeded beautifully in your personal life. What do you offer to us?
I think the biggest, most important question is, what do I want? What don't I want? And to think of the experiences that you want to have and create them. That will lead you to happy living no matter what. And not the shoulds, not the oughts, not over adaptation, but a true, honest look inside. Okay, here I am now at this age, at this point with this reality. How do I want to architect my next step? And be your truth.
Mm-hmm.
You never can go wrong, Judy, with being your truth. That is so important. And I think people frequently don't stop long enough to take stock of that because they're so busy trying to do the right thing, be the right person, do what they should, all of that silly business that's dictated by everything outside of us and nothing about our own truth.
What did you, Marjorie, really want to do after your last kid left? What did you add when you had a little more time? I mean, you still had a full-time practice and everything, but what did you, wasn't there something that I tell people to look back to your childhood, look at what was really kind of what you really wanted to do. Look at what you wished you had time to do when you were in the midst of running a busy family. What did you bring back in the empty nest?
I think what I did, Judy, was I did more things for myself that I enjoyed. I started working out more and being more concerned with changing my schedule so I wasn't just at my office all day and running home to do my, family duties. I worked out more. I enjoyed that. And I saw my friends more. I played more. I took up bridge. I did things that I made time for things for myself that were recreational that I enjoyed. And it was great. It was great. I loved it. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. And you're preaching to the choir. I am a daily, I do ballet bar and I also sometimes work out twice because I sit a lot when I write and research. So I'm one of those too. Right. I get that. That's kind of a fountain of youth, I find.
Yeah, it's important. But again, whatever you feel that you want to now focus on is what you go for. Because you've got some windows now. The kids are launched, they're at college or they're whatever they are, married or traveling through the world. And now is an opportunity for you. So you can read that book you've been wanting to read for a year. You can go on a trip with a friend. You can decide, I think I'll train for the marathon. I mean, there's so many opportunities.
Right. And I think there's kind of a bolt of courage, Marjorie, that can come with an awareness. When my last kid left, I started doing a little math and I realized, oh my gosh,
right.
What if I've lived 2/3 of my life? And,
right.
and so it didn't, at first it just kind of, it terrified me initially. And then I started to think about it. Okay, then, and what it did was it brought about a new kind of courage and a new kind of bravery and an end to fear at taking bigger risks and taking chances.
Right.
I mean, it's the reason I've got it. It's the reason I have a book out on empty nesting. It's the reason I've started as a podcaster because I there's an end of fear. I figure, I have no time to be concerned I can't do something because,
that's right.
The time is shorter and I'm going to use it well.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of your message.
I think that's
we need to use the time
well.
well.
I think it's very important, Judy. And you're a courageous human being and you're willing to be uncomfortable to get to know and do different things. And that's important. And your point about really recognizing that this experience of living, this precious experience of living is finite. And the older we get, the less time is left. So you just need to get into gear. And you're right. Face your fear, take a risk, and stretch. The rewards will come. Definitely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Marjorie. I'm so delighted, and I will certainly pull you back again on another subject later on in the HappiNest podcast.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you so much for having me. You're just a delightful, bright, wonderful gal.
Thank you, and I'll be back in touch. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into my HappiNest podcast, where we explore how to get the best out of the empty nest. I hope you'll subscribe, write a review, and reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Check out my website, judyhollandauthor.com. Have a great day, and remember, make it happen.